Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Beautiful bell.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
It's recording.
I'm sorry.
So awesome. This video is brought to you by all my Patreon supporters. Go Team Awesome! So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about ALT life, some of the pros and cons of being an ALT in Japan, specifically in small towns. How long have you been in ALT?
I've been in ALT now for 11 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yes.
So you must like it then?
Yes, I love the job. Yes.
Okay. Have you ever lived in a big city or never?
I've lived in a big city.
So
yes.
what do you like about living in a small town?
Well, my family lives in a small town, so you know,
Okay.
being in a small
like
town
home.
feels like home. Yes, thank you.
So what do you think is one challenge or one thing you don't like about being a small town ALT?
Well, unfortunately, I am the head ALT in this small town,
Okay.
so it is. So you know, being the in between the ALTs and the Board of Education is a little bit stressful.
Okay. For those of you who don't know what ALT is, ALT means Assistant Language Teacher. Assistant Language Teachers teach alongside Japanese teachers from elementary school, junior high school, and high school. Originally, ALTs were hired by the government using an exchange program called the JET program. That was where it first started, I believe, and I was actually hired by JET program originally when I came to Japan to teach, and I was placed in Hokkaido. And generally, in junior high school and high school, ALTs work alongside Japanese teachers who are licensed English teachers. The leader of the class is the Japanese person. The Japanese teacher usually teaches the grammar, vocabulary, using the textbook, and uses a combination of Japanese to explain the grammar and English to show how to speak the language. And the ALT's job in the classroom is mostly supporting the main teacher, also doing dialogue practice, pronunciation, sometimes reading example sentences or stories. And a lot of the Japanese teachers also ask the ALTs to create 10-15 minutes or sometimes entire class activities where students can interact with either the teacher or each other or in groups to practice speaking and listening. In elementary school, it's a bit different. Elementary school doesn't have Japanese teachers who teach English, so you work with the homeroom teacher. And most of the homeroom teachers don't speak English, so the ALT becomes like the main teacher. Basically, the Japanese teacher, homeroom teacher, is there to kind of discipline or support or sometimes explain directions or instructions in Japanese because the students don't understand English.
Practically, the students are very friendly and warm, and not only the students but also the teachers. Yeah, so they're very kind. It's really quite funny, but it's interesting. The school lunch.
Ah, the school lunch. Okay. You don't like the taste of the school lunch?
Yes, I don't like the school lunch.
So now that you know what an ALT is, a little history about my experience as an ALT. When I was in Toronto, I applied for the JET program. It's a really rigorous and tough application process and interview process. I was lucky enough to get the position and I was placed in Hokkaido. The thing with JET program is a lot of the contracts are with small towns. So ALTs are placed in small towns. Like for example, I was placed in Hokkaido in a town called Takikawa. With JET program, you don't have a choice, you don't have a say in where you're placed. And also with JET, the maximum you can work as an ALT is 5 years. Alongside my ALT experience in Hokkaido working in a small town, when I moved to Chiba, I worked for 5 years as a kindergarten teacher, and just last March I decided to go back to being an ALT and I moved to a small town again, this time in Chiba. And because I worked for the JET program before, I no longer could work for the JET program, so I was thinking of being an ALT, and there's a lot of dispatch companies. Dispatch company means kind of like a middleman between ALTs and the Board of Education who hires ALTs, and the dispatch company takes the responsibility of finding, recruiting, hiring, training, and sending ALTs to the cities, to the Board of Education, and they take a big cut for that process. Which means if you're an ALT working for a dispatch company, your salary is much lower than if you were an ALT either with JET program or with the Board of Education. So I didn't want to work for a dispatch company, so I was holding out and trying to find a job as a direct hire from the Board of Education. And I was lucky enough to find a position here where I work now as a direct hire. So I do get directly hired and paid by the Board of Education of this town. So today what I mainly want to talk about are some of the benefits and some of the not so good things, maybe the pros and cons of being an ALT in a small town.
I like teaching a lot. In a small town like this, it's actually very peaceful. Countryside is actually not that bad. From where we are now, it's actually in between big city to a countryside. So I think it's an easy way to commute, going to Tokyo, for example, or Yokohama, right? So being an ALT here, it's just amazing, you know. Mountains and beaches, it's just close by. I don't see any downside at all. Like for me, I really like staying and living here in Japan for a long time. So yeah, and most of my family members lives here, so there's no point of me going back home. So.
And so my life as an ALT in a small town was very different from foreigners who come to Japan to work in Eikaiwa or other private schools and work right in the city. I think the best thing about living in a small town is the amount of people. There's a lot less crowds here. So if you're not somebody who likes crowded trains or just being surrounded by people all the time, you're gonna love a small town because there's so much space and very few people around. Especially in the smaller towns, a lot of the younger people have moved away to Tokyo or Osaka or the big cities, Yokohama, to find jobs there, and they commute there, and they either live there or they commute and they come back in the evening. But generally speaking, small towns are a lot less crowded. So because the town is a lot smaller, there's less noise, there's less pollution and garbage and just clutter in the town. It's a very open, a lot more like relaxed feeling, very laid back feeling. And I think small towns are a lot more picturesque. There's a lot more like older buildings or traditional Japanese restaurants, mom and pop shops. It's very real Japan kind of feeling. You can walk around and the locals, the people are nicer, they're friendlier, they're much more open to starting conversations and just a lot more friendly, being nice to you. That's pretty much true in every big city like New York or London or Toronto. Those kind of big cities, everyone's kind of busy and running around doing their own thing, so you don't really get to make any personal relationships with people really. Whereas in a small town, when I'm walking my dog, walking around, there's always like senior citizens walking around or just generally people hanging out, and they're much more open to saying hello or how are you doing or where are you from or starting a simple conversation. So an obvious con about living in a small town would be location wise. There's not much to do. There's not a lot of variety of restaurants. There's a couple of chain fast food places like Yoshinoya or McDonald's, but there's not a lot of interesting variety of foods of restaurants. It's a lot of like local shops, a lot of like Japanese food shops, which is good on its own. But if you're looking for like chain restaurants or big shopping malls or some amazing entertainment complexes that have like movie theaters or like that game center, stuff like that, you're not gonna find it in small towns.
Well, a real feeling of community, the fact that you might see, I've already seen students while out shopping and stuff. You really feel part of it because everyone knows everyone in I've got a really small school, and so it's like a family. Small town life, sometimes you wish some things are a bit closer, some fun things to do like cinema, bowling, things like that. You want more on your doorstep. But
if you're a night person, like if you like bars and clubs and those kind of places, you're not gonna really enjoy a small town. You're probably gonna have to travel to Tokyo or the next major city to do that.
It's such a big difference from like the big city. Everything is slow pace, everything is chill. Yeah, work is fine. There's not a lot of big schools here,
Right.
which is like great.
Oh, okay. You
Yeah.
like small schools.
I like small schools. Yeah. Food in the schools are good. Like they're fresh.
Okay.
The negative part is it's far from Tokyo. I need to like party once a week. So I had to travel all the way to Tokyo for an hour and a half every week. But yeah, life here is good.
And because it's a small town, there's a lot less foreigners here. So if you don't like being stared at, if you don't like feeling out of place, you're probably not gonna like a small town. If you're in like deep in Tokyo and Shinjuku or Roppongi or on any of those like foreigner intense places, you kind of feel like you're in any other city around the world. It's very multicultural. But in the small towns, you will definitely stick out, especially if you are taller or bigger or different colored than Japanese people. The good thing about being in a small town in terms of your job is the schools tend to be really close to you. So the schools I work at one junior high school and one elementary school, and both of them are about a 5-minute bus ride away, which is awesome because if you know about Tokyo trains and JR line, in the rush hours in the morning and the evening, it becomes really packed, really crowded. People are like pushing and shoving and trying to find seats, and you can't really find seats, and sometimes there's a lot of delays and there's a lot of like problems when it comes to like public transportation in Tokyo during rush hour. But in the small town, I don't even have a train. The local station takes you to different towns, but there's no train within the town. There's only buses. And I think I ride the bus every day to go to my school. At the most, I've seen like 5 people on the bus. I've always had a seat to myself, and it's never been crowded. I've never had to push or shove my way to get in or out of a bus. So it's a very simple, easy commute to your school. And the good thing about my town is there are a lot of buses that go to big cities. So rather than taking the train, I can take a bus, for example, from my town to Shinjuku or to Yokohama or to Kawasaki City. And it's like a direct bus. I'm guaranteed a seat, and the price is not much more expensive than a train ride.
Well, I like the teaching. The teaching is always fun. I like the small town that I'm in because it's close to the sea. It's close to a major center, and it's cheaper than living in a major center with no greenery. The particular town I'm in, there's really not a lot to do. So I wish that could pick up a little bit.
Okay, so like entertainment kind of stuff?
Yes.
But once again, being in a small town, if you do like traveling, if you do like going to Tokyo to party or meet friends, or you do like going to see different places around Japan, it can get expensive because the small town is probably far from the city center, so you do have to travel and pay a lot for transportation. So for example, for me, on the weekdays, I think it would be impossible for me to travel just because by the time I finish work, and by the time I got to Tokyo, it's like maybe 2 hours away by train and bus. So getting there and coming back would be impossible during weekdays. So if I do go to Tokyo, it's usually once a week, like one weekend a week. Because it costs about 3,000 yen total to go back and forth from Tokyo, which is about $30, which adds up if you do that every weekend, both days. So I only go to Tokyo about once a week. If you don't make friends in your small town and all your friends are located in big cities, it's gonna be a bit lonely.
I don't really have a point of comparison as I have never lived in a big town or city before. So what I like about living in a small town is that you have like that sense of belongingness. So they welcome us. They welcome us AOTs. They present us to the mayor and all the bigwigs in the city. And also, I'm a very like laid back person, so I really enjoy the countryside, the peacefulness or whatever that the town life has to bring. As for shopping, I think it could have more variety. Yeah,
so
more
when
choices.
You go shopping, where do you go shopping? You have to go to Tokyo.
Aeon Mall.
Aeon Mall.
Aeon Malls, yeah.
The good thing about small towns is usually if you're an ALT in a small town, there's one ALT for junior high school, one ALT for high school, one ALT for elementary school, and towns that have a lot of schools, all junior, elementary, and high schools, there's usually multiple ALTs, which means in your small town you'll probably have between, I don't know, anywhere from 3 to like 30 ALTs depending on the size of the town. In my town, we have 20 ALTs. So the good thing about being an ALT is because you're part of that ALT group and in that small town there's not a lot of other foreigners around, you tend to bond a lot with those people. Even though you teach at different schools, you have meetings and you have like time off together, so you get to talk to people, get to know each other. And because there's no other real foreigners around, if you want to go out after work or you want to just spend a weekend like at a bar or something, rather than go all the way to Tokyo, you can always find an ALT who's also in town who's willing to hang out with you. So having a small town, it means you might not meet a lot of people, but the people you meet will be a lot more meaningful and closer to you. Also, in terms of Japanese people, because you're a local and maybe the grocery store you go to or the bar you go to or wherever you hang out in the town, the more often you go, the more people recognize you and slowly warm up to you, and you'll probably end up making some local friends at the local bar or the local izakaya or whatever, the local cafe, wherever you hang out. So it is a good way to meet Japanese people as well, and because they're in a small town and the place is not so busy, they have a lot more free time to sit and talk to you rather than in like a big fancy bar, like a hub in Tokyo, for example.
It's way cheaper than in the city. And what I don't like about small town is the bus schedule, because buses here.
Bus is life.
Buses here are always late and old.
And the job itself, I'm sure ALTs in big cities and ALTs in small cities are probably the same, but because the schools in small towns are probably smaller, have less classes, you might not have as a hectic schedule as you would if you were in a big city like Tokyo. So I teach on average between 4 to 6 classes a day at my elementary school, but at my junior high school I teach about 2, maybe 3 classes at most. I think it depends on different boards of educations and which company you work for, but where I work with my board of education, my work hours are 8 to 4. So I have to be at the school like 10-15 minutes before 8 and I can leave at 4, which is amazing schedule. So I think the work schedule is an amazing pro, definitely a benefit if you're looking for free time and personal time. And I have pets, so I don't want to be home every night, late at night, because I don't get a chance to walk my dog or play with my dog. So for me, waking up early, I usually wake up around 5:30 and take a shower, eat breakfast, get ready, and I head out. And I get to school around 7:30, 7:45. And I teach my lessons, like I said, about 4 or 5 at elementary school. And then I prepare some lessons in the break times that we get, or the periods that I don't have a class. I can do some prep work. And so I don't have to take anything home with me. I don't have to prepare lessons or do anything. As soon as 4 o'clock hits, I put all my stuff away and I leave the school and I'm out. And I'm home by 4:30, which means I can walk my dog while it's still bright out. I can go grocery shopping. I can come home, cook and eat and relax, and I can watch movies or Netflix, or I can make videos or whatever I want to do. So I have a lot more free time during the weekdays. And also because I have weekends off, it's perfect. I can, go shopping, or I can clean my house, or I can take a bus to Tokyo and hang out with my friends or do YouTube videos or whatever. So I have a lot of freedom on the evenings and weekends. As an ALT, you get summers off because there's no lessons pretty much from middle of July to September. So I have a month and a half off of no lessons.
Well, being ALT in a small town, it's kind of nice because you have lesser classes, like perhaps 2-3 classes in a day. That is good because you will have time to study Japanese in the afternoon or join in some classes or clubs. So it's really up to you on how you're going to use your time, your free time. So that's one thing. And when you're in a small area, lesser kids is going to say hello to you when you're outside and they see you.
So you get more privacy.
Yes, you get more privacy. Transportation is one, and also sometimes the people in a small area, they're more conservative than the city, so the teachers are more protective with their kids. So it's like sometimes you want to do an activity and they don't want you to do it because they will say, oh, this is too difficult for the kids. So that's one disadvantage in a small town.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. Now, if you're working for JET program or some other companies, you get the entire month off. You just leave. You can go home, you can go back to your country, you can go on vacation, you can do whatever you want. With dispatch companies, unfortunately, they'll not have any classes for you, so you can go home, you can do whatever you want, but they won't pay you any salary, which means for a month and a half or whatever it is, and also in December as well, and in the summer vacation, you won't be getting paid, or you'll be getting only a portion of your salary. So it's kind of tough, especially since the salary is low to begin with. So that's one thing I would say is a con if you're working for an ALT dispatch company. But for me, where I work for the Board of Education, I don't get like a decreased salary. I get paid the same as I would every other month. The only difference is, rather than going to classes, I still have to come to the Board of Education on working hours and working days, and yeah, I have to stay here. As you're noticing, because I'm filming here, you are allowed to do your own personal things. There's time for you to study Japanese, or prepare lessons, or prepare any kind of things you want to do for the upcoming next term. You can read a book, you can vlog as I'm doing. Yeah, there's many things you can do. We do also have like specific tasks we have to do. For example, we have eikaiwa lessons where elementary school and junior high school teachers come in, and we do like 1 or 2 hour eikaiwa free conversation English for them, just to help them out. We also sometimes go out and do English lessons for like little kids, or like summer kind of events. So there is stuff going on during the summer, so it's not just sitting doing nothing, but there is a lot of freedom. If you don't have a lot of experience teaching English, or you are not like really interested in being like a full-fledged teacher of English and having all the responsibility of creating a lesson plan and doing tests and following through on the daily work of a teacher, an assistant language teacher is a lot less work. It's a lot more stress-free. You don't need a lot of teaching experience. You don't need a teaching license. You don't have to have any specific like university or education background in education. As long as you have a university degree and you are from a English-speaking country, you're pretty much able to do ALT job. If you're flexible and you're okay with working with Japanese teachers, and you are very open to different teaching styles, this will be an amazing job for you, because you're gonna meet a lot of different styles of Japanese teachers and different ways of teaching. So it's a good, I think it's a good experience, and it's a good way to like broaden your teaching, I guess, perspective. If you are looking for being the head of the class, if you have so many amazing ideas you want to do and so many ways of doing something, and you're very like adamant on being this kind of a teacher, and you're not willing to be flexible, or you don't want to really work with somebody else, then ALT would probably not be the job for you. You don't have much control or much say in the lesson plan. Depends on the teacher, but a lot of the teachers have certain things they like. The best thing I think that my job entails as an ALT is I get to communicate with the children more. I'm not too focused on worksheets or grammar or making sure they have like testing or anything like that. I'm more of the person that is like the communicator. So I get to do listening and speaking and play activities and games and do like pair work and group games. And basically I'm the fun part of the class. Interacting with the kids is a lot more fun than if I was like the main teacher and I had to grade them and I had to evaluate them on everything. So I think a big pro about my job is how the relationship with the kids I have, whether it be in the hallways or during lunchtime, eating with the kids in their classrooms, or just actually during the teaching time. It's a lot more like a friendly atmosphere, a lot more laid back, and a lot more interactive, rather than just me teaching and them taking notes or listening. If you are an ALT, or if you want to be an ALT and have any questions or any comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Also, if there's any other topics you'd like for me to talk about, leave it in the comment section. Don't forget to thumbs up if you like this video, share, and check out my Patreon, check out my Facebook and Instagram. I'll leave all the information down below. And also don't forget to subscribe, because my videos are awesome. OzzyAwesome. Take care and see you next time. Peace.
No, cut. Do it again. One more time. Take two. Okay.
And old.
Really? Okay.
And stinky.
It's stinky.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Peace out.
Yeah.